So Rachel is a fractional CMO, an entrepreneur, an executive, a teacher, and an athlete. She's always in search of the next thing to build, as you will hear. And she's always also in search of the lifestyle upgrade. She found herself in the Colorado mountains building the internet from application layer to the physical network. And she founded the largest women's cycling team, Colorado's Women's Cycling Team Project, Vino and Velo, and Lead Out Sales. So those are some of the things that she's built in this building world that she's in. Lead Out Sales is a B2B technology marketing firm. So when she's not building brands, you'll find her on a bike, on skis, on a yoga mat, or caring for her 3 adopted cats. And she's going to give us yet another perspective about networks, a little of her story in networks, and the future. So thanks, Rachel. We're glad you're here.
Super stoked to be here. It's going to be a very tough act to follow when I hopped in to see our previous speaker. So let's see here. I'm going to share my screen. I've got 3 screens today. So let's go here and here. Can everyone see my slides? There we go. All right. Well, thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm Rachel Beisel, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for an innovation lab for the global cable industry, and it's called Cable Labs. So at Cable Labs, we focus on building network communications technologies that will enable us in 8 to 10 years in the future. So how we're connecting at this conference is enabled by the industry that I represent. Our technologies are in 500 million homes around the world. We've won 2 technology Emmys, those are a thing, for our work, and last year was Colorado Technology Association's Company of the Year. So I feel pretty lucky to work with all the PhDs, the C-suite executives, engineers, and technology builders. And while in my day job, we live in and build the network of the future every day, I wanted to share a bit about my personal journey and the analog, I'll call it analog network building to get here today. But let's start with the future first. And I should preface, I am not an academic. You heard my background. I am not a medical professional or a policy wonk. I'm a marketing technologist and primarily an autodidact. So that being said, we are already hyper connected, and yet we have not really even scratched the potential of what already exists. So there is a future where the technology we already know is on the horizon that can solve some of the big questions that we're going to be asking today. So how to stay connected to our loved ones, how to stay at home when you prefer that option, how to monitor our health and make healthcare accessible for people even with limited mobility. So at Cable Labs, we release these brief vision videos each year based on technologies that are in development currently, but not widely commercially available, that we believe will change the way in which we live, work, learn, and play. And I'd like to share a very brief video of about 3 minutes on how we live, specifically around healthcare and aging at home. And bonus points if you know who the main actor is in the film, and I'll reveal that a little bit later. So with that being said, I believe we've got the technical support folks here who are going to help roll the clip. All right, I know that there will probably be some mixed feelings around the video, but I did just want to highlight a few of some of the technological potential that we just saw within the video. So a couple of things that you saw within here: smart drugs and meds. So the ingestible pill capsule containing a microchip that was swallowed, and afterwards the microchip transmits a signal to an external electronic device that alerts a drug center where the effects are monitored. So if you just simply Google nanotechnology in medicine, you'll find quite a bit about this future already. So by 2025, the global smart pill market is projected to reach around $650 million. The brain scans that you saw, an advanced MRI system probes the microstructure of the brain with extremely high resolution, making a 10,000x zoom possible. So an ex-MIT professor, also Googler, ex-Googler, and ex-Facebook employee, Mary Lou Jepsen, I'm not sure if many of you have heard of her, but she's building one of the many companies like this in her startup called Open Water. There's also nanosurgery that you saw in here at about the size of a ring box. Today, nanorobots could revolutionize surgical practice within the next 5 to 10 years by making procedures of all sorts more precise and safer. So Nadir Jalili, an associate professor of mechanical and industrial engineering at Northwestern University, is already working to create a controlled nanorobot that will be capable of performing non-invasive cancer surgery with a degree of precision not possible through existing surgical procedures. Remote diagnostics, that was another piece that you saw here. We're already living this reality a bit today, and that's mobile services that are going to allow physicians to monitor patient status information anywhere in real time. So the technology platform taps into the hospital system and provides way-informed data sets such as like heartbeat, vital signs, etc. And there are countless startups already in this field, and it's only going to continue to improve. Intelligent virtual agent. So that's the AI agent that you saw in this particular video. And the virtual agent is personal, fully knowledgeable about the patient's treatments, needs, temperaments. And I've actually tested this type of technology before. We worked actually with USC to capture Holocaust survivors before the last living survivors pass. And I actually interacted with one of these agents, and it brought tears to my eyes. So it's a really fascinating set of technology. Sensory body reading. So the wireless water resistant sensors that you saw sticking to the patient's chest, monitoring heart rate, respiratory rate, bodily fluids, etc. In its infancy, if you have an Apple Watch or wear a heart rate monitor, you're already experiencing some of these technologies today. And even the Olibus, the 3D printed autonomous shuttle that you saw that was taking them to go fishing in the movie, that's a real bus. I've been on that bus. It was even doing pilots in Knoxville, Tennessee. And Cookie, the robot, if you've been to the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas in January, I'm not sure if they're going to be having it this upcoming year, given everything that's going on, but you've potentially already even met Cookie. So these are just a few of the many technologies throughout the film, and this is all especially relevant in this very time of crisis that we're all living through right now. In the scenario that the man who is Rance Howard, so if you're familiar with Happy Days, that's the father, that's who the actor was there, father of Ron Howard. The scenario that man is going through is the living reality of millions of Americans today who are homebound either by choice or not. And we know that people recover more quickly at home than in a hospital. So our healthcare system in this country is barely able to support this hybrid way of delivering care that we were thrust into so quickly. But this video shows the huge potential of how we can leverage connected technologies to enhance life and wellness, even in times of crisis. And again, some people might cringe at this type of healthcare future. Others might get excited about the potential. But what we all really know in our hearts is that connection is not really about technology or any device, really. But connection can come from even the most unexpected places. Let's see here. And that being said, I would love to dive into a little bit of a personal story. I see the chat going crazy. I would love to look at the chat once I get through this. So that being said, let's go into a bit about my personal journey. Very, very, very different than what you saw in the previous video. My personal journey involves more of a mechanical network, if you will. It's full of gears, cogs, wheels, a human-powered machine called a bicycle. So this picture here, this is my first bike race about 15 years ago. Not a lot of women in Tennessee are really in the sport of cycling, but and as you can see, I'm racing with the men here. I got into riding because of an ex-boyfriend. I had no idea where that journey would ultimately take me. I ended up dumping the boyfriend and I stuck with the bike, thankfully. So you see, you heard a few of the things that I started from the bio, and it wasn't always a very smooth journey. So you see, when I was fresh out of college, I decided that a year into the workforce, I would start my own business. So that was the definition of young and dumb. And I actually saw quite a bit of modest success. I grew to 3 employees and worked with national and international products and services. It was 2008, and it feels eerily familiar now. I went from experiencing, at the time, more financial success and freedom at that time to literally having to lay off my employees, sell off all assets, and eventually went to living in my car and experiencing homelessness. And then I had to sell that car to pay off the debts. And so that's where I used that bicycle to get to and from the place that I eventually had to beg for work, which was the bike shop that I. So I lost all pride, but little did I know the place that bike would actually take me. And after working in that bike shop, I found a different network. So you see, cycling isn't necessarily a very inexpensive hobby. I sold and built bicycles for some of the most successful entrepreneurs, musicians, and business owners in Nashville. Swallowing what little pride I had left actually helped me become known as my moniker, Miss Bikes a Lot, and made me the one that people actually sought after for anything bike related. So one day in that shop, I was introduced to the owner of an apparel brand we sold. It's called Swiftwick. Maybe you're familiar with it. I eventually took a position there leading marketing and helped expand that brand nationally to the #1 apparel brand in its category in cycling and running. So the bike actually led me to a better career trajectory. And turns out I wasn't half bad at racing. So in trusting the bike again, I began to look for opportunities in Colorado. That's where I'm located today. I'm not sure where the majority of the people are who are attending this conference, but I live in Colorado Springs today. So in trusting the bike again, I began to look for opportunities out here, and I knew no one, but I knew it was a cycling mecca, and I began interviewing for jobs by submitting resumes on verticalized forums for the outdoor industry. And I got a call back because I put on an interest section within the resume that I was a cyclist. And the person who was hiring his replacement also just happened to be a cyclist. So he wanted to give me a shot at the interview. And that person went on to become the managing editor of Velo News. If you're a cyclist, you might probably check out Velo News and understand and know that that's a kind of a big publication with at least in the cycling industry. And little did I know that people in Colorado are ridiculously fast. And I ate a lot of humble pie, as I say, when I first moved here. So I was definitely not nearly as fast as what I thought it was when I was living in Tennessee. But I was moving to Colorado to live out my dreams of becoming a professional cyclist because of that bike. So when arriving in Colorado and not knowing a soul, I had to build a new network. I literally asked one of my employees to be my emergency contact when filling out my onboarding paperwork. And she's had to rescue me more than once on my bike adventures gone wrong, but that's a story for another day. Bike racing actually led me to meet several amazingly strong professional women. After one of my first few bike races, wheezing from the altitude, I met 2 women who shared a passion for how cycling helps grow a community. And we all desperately wanted equal rights for women in cycling. There is no minimum wage for professional women, unlike the men, until about 1.5 years ago. And all women are still paid significantly less than men. And this is not just unique to cycling. This is in several other sports. But we decided to jump headfirst into building a new team. So we each could only recruit one person to actually convince to join us, and a few $1,000s in sponsorship. But little did we know that we were embarking on building one of the largest women's cycling teams in the US. And this picture is after a few years of the team. We even won USA Cycling's Women's Club of the Year out of 80,000 registered cyclists and thousands of teams. And the bike led me to some of my best friends in the sport, and also to get over the fear of starting something from scratch again after having lost everything in 2008. So before long, many doors were opening that I never dreamed of. I got to make commercials that were actually shown during the Tour de France and be on the cover of magazines, and got paid to ride my bike. And these things were distant dreams when I was first begging for a job at a bike shop. And when I was broke in the midst of a recession, suffering from a severe shame spiral from having lost everything, having built previously. And the bike actually led me to my first overseas trips for competitions and leisure and adventure activities that are forever etched in my memory. It led me to the tops of mountains and through intense challenges that I never thought that I could accomplish. And it led me to create an extended network that's now global in nature. And the bike opened my eyes to other experiences and improving my community around me and getting involved in my community around me. And this particular picture is from a charity that our team chose to support every year, Ride for Reading, where we deliver books by bike to elementary school children in inner cities. And it guided me to become a better leader in my community. And the bike literally allowed me to guide and lead blind and visually impaired athletes on their racing challenges. Cycling can be a selfish sport, so I think it's really important to ensure that you're giving back, and including guiding the national champion. The national champion's on the left, that's Tina. She's also a federal prosecutor in DC. And I guided her up Pikes Peak, which is a 14,000-foot mountain that I'm very lucky that's outside my door, on a tandem bicycle. And we were only 8 seconds off the men's time. And the bike actually literally led me to love. This is my husband, who's also a professional cyclist and a hairstylist, very weird combo. And we met at a bike race. So 15 years ago, I wouldn't have believed if you told me that the single most powerful tool in my toolbox was a bicycle. I probably would have laughed if you had said that. And the bike is actually what led me to the technology field where I am today. This is a company that I joined. The founder of this particular company, Quick Left, was on my cycling team. And her company was acquired by a Fortune 500. I've since helped grow teams in Costa Rica and Colombia, working at the application layer, traveled the world with Cable Labs, building the underlying 5G and 10G backhaul networks that will ultimately deliver new ways that transform how we live, work, learn, and play. I don't know where the bike will lead me in the future, but I do plan to always bring it along and trust in its guidance. In the future, there will still be the physical that it's always going to connect us, but hopefully with seamless virtual user experiences to enhance it. And whether your connection is made from your passions or is enhanced by technology, what we know is that it is the connectivity, the ties that bind us all together that matter. And every one of us has a very different set of connections, different ways that we build relationships. And as we look to the future of networks and what they can be, we have the choice to leverage connection in all kinds of ways. In my case, mechanical with a bicycle is the way that I prefer to do that. And that makes the future look bright, even in these times of crisis. So as we anticipate what the next 3, 6, 12 months look like us for a nation, we can expect, I think, lots of big changes. The cable industry, which I'm representing, and technology that supports it, I hope can enable the future solutions that we need. And if you enjoyed the film, or if you didn't, you can go to cablelabs.com/nearfuture, and you can see the other visions around learn, work, and play as well. And you can feel free to connect with me on Twitter @MissBikesALot. And looking forward to connecting virtually or perhaps on 2 wheels. And thank you all for the opportunity to speak and share my story, and to Danielle for reaching out through her network to get me tuned in.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.
So seeing a lot of chat going on, you might want to pop over there, Rachel, and get a little bit caught up. I saw a lot of folks having some cognitive dissonance between some of the material and some of the content. I'm a peacemaker, and so I always get nervous when people are experiencing cognitive dissonance, and I'm also a facilitator, and so I stifle that concern and I go, yes, that's what today's about. What are the many, many, many ways that we need to be thinking about these exact issues? How are we outside of our bubble of thinking? And how are we intertwining these ways of seeing these issues and thinking about these issues? So I'm sorry about the cognitive dissonance, the peacemaker side of me, and as the facilitator, yes, hopefully you're getting that uncomfortable feeling because you're challenging your own thinking and you're broadening. So let's keep doing that and being curious and being creative in our thinking.